In the interest of covering every aspect of the game, we now go live to Erik ten Hag's post-match press conference. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yank Gunner. That's right. I think it's fair to say whiny response from a manager who needs to have a little bit of shame. But there is no shame at Manchester United, and it is a beautiful thing as Jadon Sancho is throwing a strop and Lisandro Martinez is begging off the pitch with no injury, and Anthony's standing on the touchline pulling up his socks while they're trying to play. I guess they call that football in Manchester. It didn't look like it to me. A beautiful, beautiful thing that we can laugh at United and celebrate the brilliance that is Arsenal Football Club. We got the Eddie Nketiah late winner last season. We got 2 late winners this season. We also had a United winner chalked off, which is beautiful because now we have the most unthinkable scenario imaginable. Manchester United supporters arguing that the refs stole the game from them. Who thought we'd ever be in that world? And another unthinkable thing has happened. I find myself a fan of Vanilla Ice, which is something I would never have thought either as the Rice Baby song plays out. What an incredible day, an incredible way to experience just this season lifting off. And with the interlull now starting, I just want you to stop for a minute. Do, like meditation. Meditate on this. Think about how painful that loss must have been for United. Thinking they'd won it, then losing it, then getting humiliated with the late Jesus winner. And think about the 2 weeks of interlull they are facing them now. Think about that. Really meditate on that. Now think about us. The first half rewatch, the second half rewatch, the Thursday reanalysis, the Monday reanalysis, the instant reaction. We're going to do it all. We're going to talk about the Rice goal 432 times. Then we're going to talk about the Jesus goal 433 times. And then we're going to do it all over again. So that's the position we find ourselves in, spared from being in the position they find themselves in as all their players down tools. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cake we're baking here, I think. And so we're going to do things a little differently today. We're going to start the pod celebrating the moments that were fun yesterday and how we experienced them, the best content we've come across, the funniest Schadenfreude stuff, the big moments with the Rice and Jesus goal. Then we'll row back, we'll talk lineup, we'll talk analysis, we'll talk tactics and what worked and maybe what didn't, because it wasn't a 10 out of 10 performance, but it's certainly a 10 out of 10 experience and result. Clive did the instant reaction yesterday, and he was at the ground, and literally the band was following him as he tried to walk away from it to record his audio. So he's just backed by the band. You could hear Rice Baby playing in the background. It was a beautiful thing. And what a way for Declan Rice to have his announcement moment at Arsenal. You really couldn't ask for a better day. And I hope wherever you are, you had the chance to really soak it up and enjoy it. And here to soak it up even more and enjoy it with me even more is Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stillmanator. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Clive, you can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
To put some context to the mood I was in yesterday when we did the instant reaction, where we usually do headline stock rising, stock falling, we did an entire stock falling section just on Manchester United players. So it was really a day that gave us everything. Tim, I'll start with you. I want to just go through the emotion of the Garnacho goal ruled out, the Rice goal, the Jesus goal, the post-match. Like how big an emotional swing was this for you, and just how huge do you think it is in terms of sliding doors? What we'd be going into with 2 weeks of the recriminations if that Garnacho goal stands versus where we are now, feeling like it almost felt like the weight of the world was on us to start this season. Like every time a player was in the box trying to score, they were trying to score the Champions League winning goal, and just the lightness this creates now for us.
Yeah, definitely. I came into the game yesterday thinking, things feel like we've gone a bit hysterical a bit early, and look, maybe we've got it out of our systems, but, drawing with Fulham and then not signing anyone on deadline day, I felt like there's been a desperation in the air a little bit this season, and that just heightened it. And yeah.
And the party news,
yeah, exactly. It felt like there was a bit of a cloud gathering. And I think also, look, if it had gone the other way, if that Garnacho goal stands, like I was tweeting about 200 times last week about not conceding in the first minute at home, my absolute obsession would have been, guys, foul them in the centre circle when there's a counter-attack, because I can't believe we didn't do it for their first goal. I can't believe we let them get Garnacho through one-on-one without someone tapping an ankle in the centre circle. And that's something I think the coaching staff are going to have to look at. Lads, take a leg, take a booking.
It's what Manchester City are great at. It's their
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
And look, sometimes you can do it subtly. Sometimes you've just got to do the Matteo Gendouzi on Zaha type thing and just take that booking. But anyway, like that's now a footnote. That's not the thing that my brain's going to wrap around and obsess around. And yeah, the emotion of it was just absolutely amazing. I don't know. Like I had a feeling when we had that last corner, I just had a feeling we were going to do it, and I think it would have felt like such a robbery to lose that game because I tell you, what I was looking at for the last 20 minutes, it reminded me of last season's game a little bit, where the more the game went on, the more we looked like the big team. We looked like the big boys cranking it up. And I was looking down at times and I was counting 21 players in Manchester United's half. And it was us that was turning the screw. It was us that was trying to win the game. And I just had a little feeling when that Ødegaard shot took a deflection, because I didn't see the deflection, I thought it'd gone over. So my mind was kind of going, oh, okay, it's a draw. Not a disaster. Could have been worse. Maybe we got away with one. But when the corner was given, I just thought, I got a little feeling that something's going to happen here, that we're going to get another Reece Nelson moment. And yeah, but we certainly got that, and like a big moment for Declan Rice as well. Like if I could have chosen someone for that, I mean after Havertz maybe, but he wasn't on the pitch, it would have been Declan Rice. That really feels like his arrival. And yeah, I mean I sit in the front row of the upper tier and I can tell it's a big goal when like my mate John grabs me because he's afraid I'm about to spill down into club level and probably land on someone because I'm leaning over that far and I'm smashing the advertising hoarding below me, which there used to be like a little flag there. So I used to have a nice little cushion. There isn't anymore. So it's hand on steel. So, you know, I come out with like a giant purple hand after the game. So, yeah. And look, we have to give full props as well to Peter, the stadium DJ, for immediately going with Ice Ice Baby, because that was really the icing on the cake. So big up Peter for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's had that queued up since the signing, and for it to be this moment that he gets to play it is incredible. There's so many things. I mean, there's so much fun content that comes out when you get a big win over a rival like this. One of my favorite things I saw is someone took like the aerial shot of the Emirates, like kind of at an angle, like from, you know, way up in the sky, and drew like a tiny little red line across and said, I don't know, I think Garnacho was onside. It's just like the amount of ways that United fans are trying to talk themselves into Garnacho being
I love
onside.
the guy who's done the video of Dallo doing the slide tackle, and he just
he goes into
sliding
space.
into space. People are very creative with that stuff. I love it because I don't have a brain for that at all.
There's someone who put the Dallo slide side by side with the famous Arsene Wenger on the beach pose, you know, where he's laying in the sand after playing beach volleyball. A lot of good stuff like that. I do think, you know, look, Gabriel spends the whole season not starting. He starts this game. He has to play the whole game. And late in the game when it matters most, what's he able to do? He's able to matrix his body into some banana shape to like keep himself in line so that Garnacho can stray offside by whatever he hadn't manscaped that day. Like that is special talent there. And I mean, we could talk about, you know, should Rice be stepping up there? Should Gabriel just be going? But the point is everyone did what they needed to for that not to count so that we can get the Rice moment. Let's just put it this way. That was one of those goals where there are going to be a lot of strangers who hugged each other, a lot of pets that were scared out of living rooms. You know, like that's the moment you wait for. And for it to be Declan Rice, Clive, it's funny in a way. Like I kind of wish it could have been Kai Havertz moment, right? Because I'd love for him to get a moment where all of this weight can lift off his shoulders. But of course, it is Declan Rice who gets that moment. And when you buy a player for 105 million pounds, there's this sense no one's going to ever repay 105 million pounds, right? They're going to be good, but they're part of a collective. But Declan Rice somehow seems like he's repaying 105 million because he is not only good, now he has won us a game against United in the 90th +5. I mean, you just can't ask for a better start. And when you talk about talent combined with character, this is what you're talking about. You know, whatever the analysis was going into signing him, he has proven he's as good as some people said, better than others, and maybe even better than the price we paid for him in this moment. I mean, it could not have been scripted any better. What was your vantage point for the Rice goal?
Well, literally, I'm in the sort of north corner, looking down a club level right there. So when he ran to that corner flag, you will see me jumping up and down in the front row. Literally,
Nice.
so it's
Did you see
yeah, it's a
Saka
great
jump into
spot.
an old man's arms? I thought
Yeah,
there was going to be like a
yeah.
broken back and like an old man right to him, right into his arms like a baby.
Yeah, it's a really good moment, and it's sort of I think we had a lot of corners, but it sort of came out of the blue a little bit, because there seemed to be a second or two of silence, and why is nobody not going near him? And he takes a shot, and you always taught to kick the ball down to see what happens, right? And so he strikes down, and it goes in, and it was bedlam, bedlam, bedlam. I don't know, Elliot, I don't know. It felt very Bournemouth like, but it was sunnier. The day was nicer. It wasn't freezing, and it was Manchester United, right? So it was very very nice moment, and with the highs and the lows of the disallowed goal, and you're thinking, oh man, they're going to come out of here with the points again, and they're just an ugly team in an ugly kit. They cannot get out of here with the points, and it was real close, right? Wasn't it? It was real close, and so yeah, it was a fantastic moment, and there was another moment thereafter. I'm pleased for Rice. He covers a lot of the things that were uncovered last year. He covers space, and in fact, when we go into the goals, on the first goal, he'd overpressed on the first goal into the corner, and then when the ball comes to Havertz pays. He tries to go across 2 or 3 lanes in one to Odegaard, which was the wrong thing to do. You should go back and across. If Rice is there, it's a simple pass for him, but Rice is overpressed, intercepted, bang, they run through. Right? And it's like, man. And so, lesson to Arsenal, try to keep Rice in that middle of that pitch, because if he's there, good things happen. Right? And that's really the lesson we got to learn, really. But yeah, he had his moment, and it was wonderful. Elliot, I cannot overstate it.
I got to ask you, are you a coward like me? I can ask you both. I just want to express my cowardice. I want to know if you are a similar coward. I was screaming for Jesus to take it to the corner flag. Any other cowards want to raise their hand on the podcast? No?
Well,
no, I wasn't. And sorry, just speaking about content, I really should have looked up the guy's name, because he used to be on the Football Cliches podcast, which is a great podcast, but he was talking about one of his favourite crowd sounds is the "go on." And, and there's that wonderful moment where Jesus sits Dallo down, and you just hear the "go on, yes," and it's just absolutely wonderful.
When he was Clive running through, I was thinking about, I don't know why I was thinking about Southampton, or was it Southampton away last year? We had a couple of one-on-ones and got caught. And I'm thinking, oh, this isn't really his type of chance. What an idiot I was. Good job I didn't say that out loud. Well, I just did. And I thought, this isn't his type of chance. And basically, he makes it look so simple. And it's a dagger goal, right? Because it looks like he does this all the time. And that was a good thing about it. Yeah. It's just beautiful, beautiful moment.
It had to be. And the nice thing is it allows us to now sit here and say we heavily, heavily beat Manchester United, which we did heavily, 3-1. 3-1 clobbering of Manchester United. There's a couple of things, and then we'll start to roll back. We'll go through the game. But first of all, it's funny how sometimes football is exactly the way you expect it to be. Every meme, every joke, every gallows humor thing before the game was people saying, Arsenal 3.2 XG, United 0.4 XG, 2-1 United. Or, Arsenal 89% field tilt, 70% possession, 22 shots, United 1 shot, 1-0 United. You just knew they weren't going to be able to play football with us, and they weren't. And you knew somehow the game would wind up nervy, and it did. But it is, I think, football isn't fair. It doesn't just reward the team that's better. That's not how it works, and that's why we love it. Because if it just rewarded the team that was better, you could predict every single outcome of every single game. But I think when two big clubs clash and one club wants to play football and the other club has no ability or desire to do so, that this is the right outcome. And I must point this out. When you finish a game with Harry Maguire and Evans, as Johnny Evans, as your center back pairing, you should not win that game. You should not be able to stop the opposition from scoring. Johnny Evans was on the pitch 3 seconds before he had been burned. the fact that he brought him on, first of all, is just hilarious. I do want to reiterate, Lisandro Martinez, the butcher, commits a terrible foul when he's beaten, and then just begs off the pitch. Right at full time, it came out, Lisandro Martinez has no injury. He's been called up by Argentina. He's fine. He literally just decided he was done with the game. It's unbelievable, the implosion kind of happening there, and that we were able to propel them to that and send them into the 2 weeks of it. It couldn't happen to a nicer club. What a great moment. And I think if you asked me, what was my feeling about Arsenal's season just 3 games into the season, you guys, I think what I would have said is, you can see the bones of some really good football. You can see the pieces starting to fit together, but we are lacking in execution in the final third. We are lacking a final decision or a final ball that I feel is being contributed to somehow by like the pressure that we're supposed to be in a title challenge. Last season, it was all sort of a fun adventure. This season, it feels required. And there's that lack of lightness. And the way this just lifted the roof off and the joy, it feels like it brings a little lightness back to a club that was taking itself very, very, very seriously as a title contender. And like, we should be, but it should be, we want that joy that we had last season. This hopefully, I think, changes a little bit of the narrative around it and lightens everybody up just a little bit. Go ahead, Clive. Mm-hmm.
I think Arteta said it was a reconnection moment, wasn't he? And
Yeah.
I think there is something to that. I also will say that we've had 2 home games this year. One was a 12:30 job where we dominated until we didn't. And then we had the game where we conceded in 56 seconds. Against 2 smaller clubs, and maybe we didn't show our best face as fans, shall we say, because of the events, the moments, etc., and things that were happening. I think we may be searching for problems, but come the day when we're playing Man United at home, everyone had their Sunday best on, mate. Everybody was in tip-top form, and they were going to support anybody that had that red shirt on. I really felt that on Sunday. I don't care who you were. Even though we could see a certain player struggling, he wasn't getting dug out anywhere near I was. People could see it and just let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. I thought the crowd were absolutely brilliant. Electric, really, really good. And I think it felt a little bit more like last year, even though I'm trying to neuralize last year, Elliot. It felt very much like the days we had last season.
Yeah, I think, you know what, guys, might be the biggest moment in the game of all of them, more than the Garnacho disallowed or the Rice goal or the Jesus goal? It might be Odegaard's equalizer. Because I think if we had to go into yet another game playing from behind in a game we shouldn't have been behind, and the crowd's starting to get antsy and we're chasing and we're pressing, and suddenly, yeah, we're dominating, but we're snatching at shots, right? And like, to be able to get level that quickly and play on level terms instead of playing from behind. We have played from behind too much this season for the way we played as a team. I mean, we didn't play behind against Palace. We didn't play behind against Forest. So what the hell am I talking about? We only played behind against Fulham. But my point is that Fulham game had so much right about it, but I think playing from behind for the length of time we did really change the psychology. And I think the fact that we didn't have to do that in this game because we got equal level so quickly, I think was really important. Not to have to go through a 20, 30, 40-minute stretch of playing down a goal and letting that tension soak in again. So a huge moment there. Let's go back to the beginning. News had started breaking a couple days early about Thomas Partey's injury, but it was confirmed the day of the game, and it looks now like it may be the October interlull. They're hoping to get him back after that. It's a blow. I think it is a testament to the depth of this squad. Sometimes you need a wake-up call to remind you that your panic is overstated. There was a lot of panic, Tim, in the wake of the window closing, especially as the Partey news was circulating. What have we done? We've left ourselves short. This is insane. We haven't done enough. Window is a 6 out of 10. It's a 5 out of 10. It's a 3 out of 10. A lot of panic. And I get it, because when you're in the window, you're grading the window. And I have absolutely total agreement with everybody that there's probably more we could have and should have done to be as loaded as we want to be. But then even with Thomas Partey out injured, and even with Timber out for the season, I look at the lineup that we put out against United. The back four from last season: Declan Rice in midfield, Odegaard, Kai, we'll talk about that in a bit, Saka, Martinelli, Eddie. And then on the bench, Jesus, Smith Rowe, Vieira, Nelson, Tomiyasu, Kivior, Raya. Good players not even making the bench. And that's with Partey injured. And that's with Timber injured. You realize, well, yeah, there's more we could have done, but there's still a lot of talent in this team. And I think that it was good to be able to reconnect to that and to be able to play maybe a little bit more the way we think of ourselves as playing. Zinchenko inverting, the back four from last season. We've talked about needing to update and reinvent and test and learn and change. But what's your take on going back to basics, so to speak, doing some of the things that worked last season and the impact of this party injury maybe forcing us to get some players back into the team like Gabriel and back into positions that they know a little more naturally?
Yeah, so like on Partey, look, we've got a few weeks for this, but I think there's probably more than one reason we should have said goodbye in the summer, and one of them is his physical unreliability. Strangely, we probably miss Partey as a right back more than a midfielder because we've still got Declan Rice, and then Jorginho came on. Mohamed El Neni was running down the touchline in his jeans and trainers. So we do have depth in that position, but look, going ahead to next summer, I see us struggling to punt on Smith Rowe and Partey when we probably should have taken some money for them this summer. But that's a conversation we can have a whole other time. I think you're exactly right. And look, I think as much as Gabriel is just one of our best defenders, he just is. I just think the team looks different with Zinchenko in it. I just think he's one of our most important players. He's just like, some players are the glue, but he's like, he's more of a lubricant, Everything looks far less stiff when he's in the team. And it's not just his technical competency that, again, this really transmits in the stadium, the way he carries himself. Like, he is not worried at all. Like, and I'm not having a go at Partey by saying this, but you can tell when he kind of inverts from central midfield, it's a bit stiffer, because he doesn't really do it all the time. Zinchenko is just like, yep, I'm in right central midfield at the moment. Come find me. I'm absolutely fine. Like, he's one of those. He's got the personality to play that position because it's a risk. You're taking a risk by leaving what's actually your kind of post, but he's just like, nope. He plays like he's convinced of the need for the position, not just because the coach is telling him to do it, if you know what I mean. And I just think we look a much better, much smoother team. And it's not just that he's in left central midfield either. He doesn't just like move in 10 yards. Like, he pops up everywhere. Like, he's the release valve for everyone. He's over on the right wing. He's over on the right. And he trusts the people behind him as well. And that transmit. And I just think, as well as the fact that he's a brilliant technician on the ball, I just think there's just something about him that he is one of the leaders of this team. He's probably what Arsene Wenger would call our technical leader, him and Ødegaard.
Yep.
And you just feel a bit one of those players who, when they get the ball, you look at your phone or something because it's going to go where it needs to go.
Yeah.
And I thought we looked much better for him in the team.
I don't think data tells you everything, but I think one thing that data can tell you about the difference that Zinchenko makes is this is the first game of the season really where we had balance between left wing and right wing in terms of attacking. Martinelli, had, I think, actually a few more touches than Saka in this game. It just tells you, again, Zinchenko comes in and suddenly we look balanced. We have a route to attack down the right, which we still took advantage of. But we were able to get it to Martinelli, and Martinelli just had Wan-Bissaka on toast, and that's not easy to do. That's a good 1v1 defender. Maybe Martinelli could have done more with some of those moments, but he created a lot of corner kicks. We just didn't do enough with the corners. But really, really good balance between left and right. And I think Zinchenko's important to that. And let's give some credit to Tomiyasu, by the way, who, when he came on for Zinchenko, because if you want to criticize Zinchenko, to me, he's a 70, 75-minute player. End of story. That's what he's always going to be. Tomiyasu came on and stood in the Zinchenko role and I thought did really, really well in his cameo. So huge credit to him for not just coming on and suddenly standing in the left back spot, but coming on and standing in the quote-unquote Zinchenko role and doing Zinchenko stuff. I just want to pull you up on one thing, Tim. If a lubricant makes things less stiff, I would argue then it's not doing its job. And this has been Sex Corner with Elliot, which is what everybody wanted on their podcast. So Clive, so we get these players in their position. And what we did also get to see is Declan Rice taking over as the six for Arsenal. It was the thing that we debated this summer is, can we move on from Thomas Partey, or is that too big a risk as Declan tries to learn to play in a system that's more about possession, more about breaking lines, more about, being in the attacking third? Because my concern was he's been playing suffer ball for years. Can he do that? This was his chance to show he could do it, and my goodness, did he ever, right? 90 minutes of everything you want in that position. Maybe we could pull him up on what he did in that moment where Garnacho sprints through. Because if that's a goal, we're going to be debating that one little maybe missed moment there. But by and large, Declan Rice, 4 games into his Arsenal career, showing that he can take over that role, which he's now going to have to do for at least 6 weeks. Is that another big talking point? I mean, Gabriel coming back obviously is a huge one, and Declan Rice getting his chance to take over that midfield captain role.
Yeah, I think from Crystal Palace, really, he showed he could play the 6. I thought he did it really well that day. And he continued. I do think, again, it's our job to sort of analyse and look to the horizon. And when we do the rewatch, Elliot, you'll see on a lot of the big moments that I'm afraid that nearly went against us, Rice was absent, so we have to work on that, right? So, and because what happens is what you tend to do, much like Zinchenko, what we tend to do is we start to trust these big personality players. So when Zinchenko gives the ball away, it normally leads to something quite important because we've moved thinking he's going to keep it. And the same, we get dependent on Rice and his ability to cover ground and make tackles. If he's not there, we have to react to his positioning changing. So we have to react better. And we didn't always do that in this occasion. So that's to learn. But yeah, he's a good player. What can you say? He's a really, really good player, a really good personality. He seems to fit the dressing room perfectly. And he brings a level of leadership and belief in our team. And I think, as fans, you're watching, you want to see big players with big personalities that want to be here, that buy into what's happening and buy into the learning process that they're going through. And he's sitting there with a 5-6 year contract in his back pocket and he's 24 years of age, just like everybody else that's around him, it feels like. Everyone's between 22 and 25. And I couldn't get over that with Dale. I think I said it about 4 times in the instant reaction because I had goldfish head on, had a few drinks, but it just really stood out to me how young the group was, and he's right in that timeline. So I kept saying, we're watching this team develop, but we're going to watch this team more or less, the majority of it develop for the next 3 years minimum, because it's all here, right? It's all here, and these relationships and automisms are going to get better. And Declan Rice is right in the centre of that. The centrepiece, which he's been called, right?
Yeah. It is incredible to me that you can have a team like Manchester United come to the Emirates and we just dominate. It's that simple. Now, again, some people are going to be screaming, Elliot, football isn't just who has more of the ball. But to Tim's point, it's 21 players in their half. It's no real threat or outball. And then all of a sudden, of course, they score from their first shot. In fact, an Opta stat, I think it was Opta Joe might have been Orbinho who tweeted this out.
Opta
7.
Joe.
Arsenal have conceded from the very first shot they faced in a game 7 different Premier League matches in 2023, more than any other side. Concern. Let's face it. Football sometimes is about breaks going your way, breaks not going your way. And this game was very much a game that even though we dominated, it was about breaks, right? I think we get a little unlucky with the Rashford goal, actually. I think we get quite unlucky with the overturned penalty. We get a little lucky with the offside, right? I mean, he's offside, but it's by the slimmest of margins. That's, that could easily not be offside. And we're having a very different conversation today. We get a little, unlucky here, a little lucky there, and it just goes either way. But, the football on the whole worked. And this is where I think it gets difficult because, Tim, if you say the football worked, like the goal shouldn't be for individuals to thrive. The goal should be for the team to thrive. And the team is playing well and thriving. And yet there is an individual that is perceived as not working. And you have to try to stitch those two things together and understand how they interact with each other. The Kai Havertz conversation is one that you can't avoid. And of course, this is how football works. I remember one day, it was the day Aboué got subbed off as a sub and got booed. He was having a bit of a mare. He just needed 10 minutes, 5 minutes where the game didn't come to him. But the ball just kept coming to him. The game just kept coming to him. Football is cruel that way sometimes. And of course, our first gilt-edged chance falls right to the feet of Havertz with time and space to slot it. And he doesn't just not convert in the way Saka doesn't convert in the 80th. He basically kicks fresh air. And I think people want to be patient with Arsenal players, even Arsenal players who come from Chelsea expensively, and even ones they're questioned about. You can understand why in that moment people get frustrated. And then it's his square ball that gets cut out. There's a lot that still has to happen for it to be a goal, but it's a goal. And it's like I said with the Abue thing, it just feels like the moments have not gone his way. And that is leading to a lot of hand-wringing about this. So some people said to me, Elliot, we played down a man when he was on. I think that's harsh. I really, really do. What do you think about, that air shot and the square ball and the kind of moment he's in right now? Because the team feels like it's working, right? So there must be something he's doing that's okay. But the big moments when they've come to him, it's not gone well, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was another, overall a bit 6 out of 10 from him overall. By no means a disaster, but it's not really clicking. It's not really worked that much so far. We've seen some flashes. We've seen some good stuff. We've seen some bad stuff. I think there's a few things to this. Obviously, tactically, and we're asking him to do something very different. It's also I always described it as an off-the-ball role when, Xhaka was doing an approximation of it. I think it is. His job is basically almost to move away from the ball sometimes, and those roles can be hard to appreciate. But I think there's a few things to this where, look, he has to show some personality now, because clearly, the air shot thing, that just looks like a lack of confidence. And on one hand, it's kind of a shame that, he already feels like that. But on the other, I felt like people were a little bit after him at the Fulham game. I didn't feel that in this game. I didn't hear the groans or people having a go at him or anything. I didn't feel, maybe I just missed it, but I didn't feel like people weren't prepared to give him a chance. And I can understand if confidence is low, but if you're an elite player, yeah, this is when you show personality to come out of that. So I think it'd be justified if people still have doubts if after 3 games he's lost a bit of confidence. And I think it was really interesting, the contrast between what Arteta said after the Fulham game, when he was almost a bit critical, about him playing backwards, and that was one of those moments. And again, I'm opposite the bench, so I can see this when there's a moment that just annoys a manager and you immediately see them call for someone to come on. And that's what happened last week against Fulham when he played that pass backwards that annoyed everyone. Arteta immediately went, Vieira over here. He, his patience had gone. It was right. So it wasn't just the fans. Clearly there was some frustration, but then the contrast of what Arteta said pre-game, where he really went into bat for him and he talked about showing the player some love and all of that. And he was saying, and I think with some justification, he was talking about some players who maybe didn't immediately do it in an Arsenal shirt, but the fans got behind them. This time last year, just over a year ago, Saliba makes that mistake and the whole ground sings his name. And all of that, but at the same time, I don't think that that anyone got after him or anything yesterday. But clearly, Arteta detected something in the time he's had him that's this is an arm around the shoulder guy, and that's fine. Some people are boot in the backside, some people are arm around the shoulder, but I think it's kind of justified to be concerned if, after 3 games, his shoulders are down and he's lost a bit of confidence. He needs a moment. That's what I meant earlier, that Declan Rice moment. That I'm pretty convinced that there's a lot of soft factor stuff going on here. And if he can score a goal or make a big contribution or something that people see that you don't have to squint to see, I think he just needs a moment like that to kickstart his Arsenal career a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, it's 4 games, so it may not work, but I don't think 4 games is enough to know if it's not working. Now, here's the interesting thing. Arsenal, if you just look at it, if you zoom out a little, right, and you say, how are Arsenal playing? Because that's ultimately that's really what matters, right? I would say Arsenal are playing pretty well by and large. And that's even including the fact that for the first 3 games, we were playing a system, we didn't really look super comfortable in. We are currently 4th in expected goals for, right? So Brentford are actually first, Brighton are second, City are third, and Arsenal are fourth in expected goals for. In expected goals against, we're second, City then us. So we're right behind City in the expected goals we've created, and we're right behind City in the expected goals we've conceded. So I look at that and I say, that's a team that on the whole probably should have 12 points. The Fulham game is, it's a bit of a disaster what we let happen, but the way we played certainly was good enough for 3 points. And if it's working, then we don't have to pull Kai Havertz out of it right away. Can I tell you something, Clive? Because a lot of people said to me, Elliot, if it's a meritocracy, then Vieira should start. He should get his start. And by the way, I totally understand that. A lot of people had been saying, by the way, if it's a meritocracy, Trossard should start over Martinelli. But you play your best players. And Martinelli was brilliant against United. 5 dribbles succeeded, by the way, the most in the game. He had the most touches in the box, 9. He created shots. He won all those corners. But can I give you an interesting stat about Kai, Clive, that I think explains why you can't just bring Vieira in for Havertz? The number 1 most touches in the box in this game was Martinelli. I just told you that. Do you know who number 2 was? Kai Havertz was 7. He had more than Eddie. He had more than Saka. He had more than Odegaard. The left 8 is the box crasher. I really believe that's what Mikel wants from that position. Last season, Saka actually, the one stat he really stood out in attack was touches in the box. So I think Mikel said, what if I get a guy who can crash the box? And that's his superpower. Late arrivals, back post headers, back post finish. And here you go. Kai had the second most touches in the box. He's the box crasher. If you take Vieira in there and pull Kai out, Vieira's not a box crasher. He's a 10. He wants to sit 20 yards from goal and either distribute or shoot. Now, that's a good skill to have, but that's not what Mikel wants in that position, is my view, which is why I think you got to stick with Kai a little longer to see if he can crash the box from that position and make that work. Tim, it seems like you want to come in on that for a second.
Just one sentence. Yeah. In when he was critical of Havertz, slightly critical immediately after the Fulham game, he mentioned goals. He said he should have scored a couple of goals by now. So I think you're right. That's how he sees that role.
Yeah. And so as long as he's getting into positions at the back post to score, I think Mikel's going to keep trying because he's going to say, that's what I got him to do. Arrive at positions at the back post to score. Now, if he keeps kicking fresh air, he's going to have to make a decision. But Clive, I don't want to sound like I'm making apologies for the player. He has not performed at the level he needs to. 4 games for me is not enough. I think we see the role that Mikel envisions for him. So for you, is that role going to fit him? Is he going to slot into that role eventually? If we just persist with it, will that fit what he does?
Yes, let's strip it back a little bit. So when we first started to talk about this role, this midfield 3 that we signed, all the 3 24-year-olds, we thought, okay, how's this going to work? So we could all envisage that Kai was going to replace Saka, and actually it's going to be a box role. And actually, because Havertz had played centre forward, we probably expect a little bit more offensive play. Actually, we're probably worried defensively how this is going to go. Is it going to leave too much us exposed? When it's actually come down to it, I actually think Havertz is as good, if not better, defender than Granit Xhaka. And Granit Xhaka is probably, at the moment, better in the box. That sounds crazy. I know he scored 7 goals and 2 in the last game when it was a celebration game. So let's keep it real. 7 and 7 was his stats last year. Kai Havertz should supersede that. He should. Now, the issue is there's phases to this role. When it comes to running and duels, he's got that down pat. Around the edge of the box, I think he looks a little bit uncertain. But the part of the role, sometimes you have to say to a player, Elliot, you say to a player, you have to own your own game. And you have to get yourself into those positions. And so the fact he missed that chance, it was bad miss, right? On his left foot, no excuses. Waved his foot, confidence. You can see it a million miles away. The fact he missed that chance it's not a problem, really. It's not a problem because we won. But if we had lost, it would have been a problem, right? But he was there. That's exactly where the spot he needs to get to. And he needs to keep going there. And what I saw is he stopped crashing. He stopped going there. You mustn't be afraid of your spot. Because now he's found himself this half and half position. So now you're asking him to be a ball progressor. And I'm sorry, mate, you're not a ball progressing passer. You're a carrier, but you're not a ball progressing passer. The bloke at Bayer Leverkusen right now, he can fizz a ball, one touch to receive, one touch, it's gone. Ball progressing is his game, whether he's playing 6 or he's playing 8. Doesn't matter. I'm one touch, my next pass, I already know where it's going. Boom. It goes at pace. Kai Havertz flicks the ball gently across, caresses it. He's not a ball progressor. So be a runner, be a crusher, accelerate, cut, slash. Be that guy, because you can be that guy. So you have to own your game with your body language. I want this ball. I really want to go. Martinelli misses him out sometimes. Sometimes I think, you know what, did he really want it? And so if I'm thinking that, what's the player thinking? You know what, I'm going to turn away. I'm going to turn away, come inside and try and beat 2 men, which Martinelli can do, right? And did do in this game. But he needs to cut with acceleration so he gets that ball, so he's cutting the ball back on his left foot or taking shots. It's just about a bit more time for him, really. And the role suits him. And another way to look at him is to just look at him as a tool in your toolbox, right? Because on occasions, different games, he can post up and be the 9. When teams are pressing us, we can flip Jesus out and flip him up front and go straight over top in one phase, which we couldn't do last year because we didn't have the ability to go over the press. So he's a tool that we can now use, and a very valuable one, and one that's not going away, right? And so, like I say, on Sunday, I thought the crowd were fantastic with him. They really were, and Tim's bang on about that. People really made an effort to support. And that's what we have to do, because this is something that needs to work. I said before, this position owns our ceiling. I really believe that strongly. This position owns our ceiling. The others, we know the actors in the play, right? We know what they can do, but this position was always limited last year. And if we can take it up a notch, I think this is going to close the gap. So we really need to be behind this player.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And look, you don't persist forever because the team is more important than the player. But I think in terms of the role that's envisioned for that position, the reason we spent so much money on him is not because we think he's a better version of Vieira. Let's be clear. Kai Havertz is not a better version of Vieira. Vieira is a better version of Vieira than Kai Havertz. They're not the same player. And the role envisioned for the left 8, as evidenced by Mikel going for him, is a player of Havertz's skill set with size and box crashing in late runs, touches in the box, ability to finish at the back post. All that's missing is, he says, laughing and crying at the same time, the finishing at the back post, which he has to do. And, unfortunately, Tim, this is a sliding doors moment also. It wouldn't have been much, but winning that penalty, if we score it and go on to win the game, might have been just that little moment, because then you see it, you say, you know what? There it is. There's that late run. It's a lovely little outside of the boot pass from Nketiah. There's that late run. What was Kai Havertz doing? Crashing the box. Not sitting at the top of the box waiting for a wall pass, crashing the box. And he gets through 2 men, and he gets his ankles tapped on both sides. And I agree it's soft. That's not the rule. VAR isn't supposed to re-officiate the game. The ref on the pitch called a penalty. It is a soft penalty, but there is contact. And as a result of that, when you see the contact on VAR, you must give the penalty. And if he gives that penalty and someone steps up, we don't know who, and slots it, then we could sit here and say, see, those runs Kai's making, that actually became the difference in why we won. But it gets called back. And that's just where he's at the moment. He cannot catch a break. How big a moment do you think that is? First of all, you can feel free to go off on VAR. And then secondly, say, how unfortunate that is for Havertz, who I think just that little bit, that little pat on the back, you won us a penalty that won us the game, could have been that one little thing he needs just to get going,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because initially I kind of thought, oh yeah, maybe I don't think that was a penalty. It looked a bit like a dive, but actually there was an angle that that was on Match of the Day too, and you see it from more of the side, and he's actually clipped twice. He's clipped on the way down, but there's a clip before that as well. And you're right, it's soft, but VAR is not supposed to overturn soft calls. And again, it's one of those that I don't know.
It's Casemiro's clip on his ankle that is the bad one. Yeah, you know what I mean? Wan-Bissaka sort of brushes him, but if you look, Casemiro hits his right ankle, and you can see his right ankle like flop around. Because I'll admit, in the instant reaction, I was like, maybe he should just stay on his feet. Once I saw that Casemiro contact,
Yeah,
I don't know that you can
it
stay
helped.
on your feet,
No,
with your
no.
ankle
And
flopping around.
and even if you can't, you probably should go
You
down
should
when you feel
just go
contact.
down. Yeah.
So yeah, on reflection, that seems a little bit absurd. But yeah, like it could have been that moment for him. And again, like I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it, that we've kind of got this timeshare now that's developed in the last two games between Havertz and Vieira for different game states. When perhaps, and Vieira's come out with an assist in both games. Come out with a through ball or a through pass, just changing it up a little bit. And that's a really interesting development. And Arsenal have got the tools to do that elsewhere as well. You talked about the depth of the squad. Like Trossard and Smith Rowe didn't come on yesterday, and indeed Smith Rowe hasn't come on at all this season so far. But just different players to open up different angles. We talked about it in depth, didn't we, with the Fulham game, that like he threw Zinchenko and Vieira on. So that Arteta clearly saw something where it's like, I need ball players here. I don't need like Kivior, Tommy. It was Kivior, wasn't it? Don't need Kivior and Havertz. I need Vieira and Zinchenko, and just like really changing things like that. And so that's interesting to me. And Vieira, like this is how competitive the squad is now. Vieira wasn't getting off the bench, but one good performance off the bench, and now he is the one that's being called for. And that's how you like in a competitive team. That's you slowly muscle your way in. 3 years ago, Vieira would have been in the team because it would have been someone underperforming there, and so. But you edge your way in. It's like now Vieira's one of the first ones called off the bench, and now Trossard isn't, and Smith Rowe isn't, and so there's competition there as well, and that's another thing for Havertz. Like, had Partey been fit, would Havertz have started? We don't really know. Would it have been Partey and Rice? So, there is pressure on his place at the moment. I tend to think Goodison Park, which is the next game, I think he'll probably be very welcome for that physical presence, for that height against a Sean Dyche team. I think that's going to be really useful. I think that's going to be his type of game. But maybe like, look, if someone can tell me what Manchester United did differently to Fulham, Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest against us, I'm open to it. I think they played exactly the same way. It's just they've got Marcus Rashford, who's a better player. That's the only difference I could honestly distinguish. And so we were playing another deep block team at home. And so, maybe that was more of a Vieira game, but maybe Goodison Park is going to be more of a Havertz game. And I do think his best performance so far has been at Selhurst Park. So, maybe he's going to be one of those players who's going to be more valuable in certain types of game.
And to Vieira's credit, the one thing you need to do if you're in a sub role is make your sub appearances count. You know what I mean? If you're going to get on the pitch, you got to make it count to show the manager, when you call on me, I make a difference. And that pass from Vieira to Jesus, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it leads to this being a much more fun day. And the league is not ready for when we unleash Gabriel Jesus, because I'm telling you, we are going to rediscover that player. And I think we have all forgotten that when we were at our imperious 100-point best last season, he was our best player and we were blown away by him. We need to get ready to be blown away by him again. I want to do some moments analysis. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and he's got to bring it as well, because Nketiah is playing well. So when Gabriel Jesus gets his 20 minutes off the bench, that's exactly the stuff he has to do.
Yeah, and get his fitness up and be ready to play regularly. There's competition for places, even as much as we might think the squad is thin. I want to do some moments analysis because I want to talk a bit about their goal and the defending on it, and the goalkeeping on it, and the goalkeeping battle in general. I want to do some analysis of the goals we scored, and just a bit more on some tactical stuff that's evolving. So there's still a lot. And why would we go short on a day like this? This is a day you want all the pods to be double length, but what you don't want to be double length is your body hair. That's right. And if you don't want your body hair to be double length or even a length at all, then you need the tools that Manscaped provides. Now, I have to say, I've always loved Manscaped. I obviously use the Lawnmower 4.0 on my downstairs area, and I like a lot of their products. I do like the Weed Whacker, which does ears and nose hair. But I have wanted some kind of electric shaver, especially for when I travel, for my face. Because, there's some days you just want to do a little touch up and you don't want to get the razor out and the shaving cream and all that. So Manscaped, the brand for below the waist, is now the brand for your face. And sometimes your face is below the waist. We don't kink shame here. That's just what happens. Anyway, let me get back to the point. The point is that they have the handyman, and the handyman is a really cool face shaver. It's travel friendly. It's waterproof. It's got a very, very, very long battery life. It has the skin safe technology that they're renowned for to reduce cuts and nicks and things like that. I just love it. And so it is a really good tool to take with you. You get the Beard Hedger Pro kit, has everything you need for beard control. So it's just a beautiful thing. Actually, let me make sure I'm getting this right, because I want to read, Double Trouble. Yes, the handyman electric face shaver. Yeah, I want to see what the Beard Hedger. Yes. Okay. So anyway, we're good. Just making sure, reading through, making sure I got everything. Yes, this is what I wanted to say. The rotary wheel gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of guards and add-ons and things like that. Absolutely love it. So yeah, I mean, it's the tool that I sort of feel that they needed in their assortment, and now they have it, and now you can get it. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's 20% off, free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ArsenalVision. Hit the refresh button with the handyman, is what they say there, and I think that's a clever thing. So kudos to the marketing people. Now, the one thing that we also know is when we're talking about a team and whether we're light or whether we have all the talent we need, acquiring talent is important. It's important on the pitch, and it's important in your business. And if you don't have a business, start a business, then hire people, because hiring people keeps the world going around. If you want to hire people, Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates. And with Instant Match, which is a really cool feature, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment, all caps, they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data in the US. Now, one of the things I love about Indeed is that candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data, meaning that you can kind of do a little extra recruitment, get the kind of candidates that you want applying to your job versus the other job sites where you're just sort of out there in the ocean, not necessarily matching to each other, because you want to hire people that want you, and the people looking for jobs want to be at a place that matches them. So this is just natural. And I've said this before, the best thing, Indeed is the only job site where you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. So start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 job credit now at Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports and support the show by saying you heard about it on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire Sports. Terms and apply. Need to hire you. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Edit. Okay. Clive, let's talk about the Rashford goal quickly.
Yeah.
It's just really bad. I mean, it's that simple. You play that well and then play that stupidly, like in a moment. And if there's one thing that we could say about Arsenal this season, we've not been a good moments team. We have created good moments in the attacking third that we've not executed on. And then we've had silly moments at the back that undo all our good work. And this felt like that again. I thought White and Saliba did not do well together. Saliba is in the same line with White. I thought Ramsdale was fine until someone said, you got to look again, because United fans were saying Ramsdale was weak. And I noticed he did kind of push off late and get a weak hand to it. So I just don't think it's good all around. Do you want to break down the way we concede that goal and why it seems like we just haven't gotten the big moments quite right this season yet?
Yeah, so I don't think the moments haven't gone our way, and we haven't been super flow based neither until Zinchenko's come back. Right? Funny that. So we're starting to flow again. We start to look like who we are. You know, our pods are starting to get back together again on the right hand side, the left hand side. They did actually say they call it units in the club, which I think was really good. And I think Ramsdale said in the interview that the left unit has only trained together 4 or 5 times. So you can see the left unit, or left pod as we call it on here, has got development room, right? So, and Rice is in the middle, and he's the guy. You have Jesus as a connector. You can imagine the team down the road, can't you? Jesus is a pod connector, and Rice is a pod connector from the base of the team. You have 2 Odegaards in the team, basically Zinchenko and Odegaard. They basically are 2 the same player, 2 number 10s, just dotting around different parts of the pitch. And that's how we're going to structure ourselves. And so when one of our key pillars moves himself out of the middle, for whatever reason, we have to adjust to that. And we didn't on the goal. They popped it down the side. And they switch it into Rashford. And we all know what Rashford's going to do on his right foot. I think Ben White's a really good player, but funny enough, I think Rashford is kryptonite a little bit. And And I think he defended him like he was the last man on the pitch. And he had a guy behind him. And so there needs to be communication there to say, go tight. Go tight. Don't worry about going tight. I've got your back. But if you watch White and Saliba defend him, they defended him exactly the same. You could literally, they look the same body shape, everything, the spacing. And you don't do that when you got two of you. When you got two of you, one can be aggressive to try to force the attacker to make a move, and then the second player sweeps around. And so that's the first bit. So Rashford does his little shake and bake, comes inside. We've all seen it before. And he takes a shot. Now, Ramsdale's looking to shuffle his feet, and he's trying to shuffle his feet, and Ramsdale has got amazing fast feet, and he probably took off one step too late. Do you see what I mean? He took off one step too late. I'm being ultra critical here. It's a great shot, and he gets a half a hand on it, and he goes inside the post, and I'm thinking, my God, I've not even seen this team down this end of the pitch, and they're 1-0 up. Then I look at my phone at half time, that literally was the first touches they had in our box. And this is the sort of thing that makes you think, that's unlucky. So what do we do as fans? We criticise the moment, and it's very unlucky. They barely deserved it, shall we say? And then you start to think, are they playing for this? Are they playing for this pattern? And I think from Man United as a team, what they're doing as a team belies their club. If that's not football that should be on that badge, and there are things happening in that club which need real looking at. We spoke about Paulinho last week, and what a good player he is. In days gone by, he would be playing for Manchester United. No doubt about it. I read just now that they went for him and were priced out and went for Emirates. This is Manchester United. They always got the best player that was running around free and available. They always got the Rudies. They always got the Ferdinands. They always got these players, the Carricks, the Berbatoffies. They got the player, the hot player at the moment. They got him. And they're not getting him. And they're looking like a team which plays in identity, which their fans should be really screaming about. They're a budget team. They really are. And it's really, with a star player, I'll tell you what they've got. They've got three personalities. They got Bruno, they got Rashford. And so they drive their system, that link. Now they've added a goalkeeper who is probably the biggest personality of all and has the most touches nearly. And if you're telling me you're moving the emphasis of your team back to him, we have, I say we, I don't know why I said the word we, but we have a problem, don't we? It's a football problem, isn't it? And we all love the game. That is not football for me. That's beyond De Zerbi, bait people on job. This is, you are literally saying, I'm giving you the team, the personalities to this. I'm giving my club to three personalities and hoping it's going to work out. And that's not good enough. And we're here as fans, talk about one player we're trying to bring in, trying to feed into the team that's not quite working yet. But we look like Arsenal. We have an identity. We have our groups. We have our way we flow. We have everything in place. And they are searching big time. And it depresses me as somebody who's grown up with Manchester United being a big club, but they are still a big club, but they are not a big team. That makes sense, Elliot. They are not a big team.
Yeah.
There are other teams with far less money, better coached, better managed, better run economically, financially, and they're sitting there as our UK club, the biggest club in the UK, and it's a crying, it's a shame what's happening to them. Although I'm not laughing, I'm crying too much, shall we say?
Yeah, it gives me what you call endorphins, is what it gives me. And I just want to say this. There's been a lot of focus on our defending this season because we gave up a stupid early goal to Fulham, right? We gave up a stupid late goal to Fulham and this stupid goal to United. And first of all, every goal you concede, you always think is stupid. But I really want to reemphasize, we have conceded the second fewest shots per 90 of any team behind only City, and the second fewest expected goals allowed behind only City. Our approach of dominating the ball and territory does the two things it's meant to do. It suppresses shots and it suppresses chances. Now you might say shots are chances. You know what I mean? Chance quality. We have conceded the least quality chance, the least amount of goal scoring opportunities of anybody in the league other than City. It's doing what it's meant to do. We've just been a bit unlucky. I remember looking, it was like January of last season when we were, on that 100-point pace. I think our goals allowed was 10 fewer than our expected goals allowed. Then it whipsawed. The last part of last season, now we defended poorly, let's admit, but we wound up conceding like 10 more than our expected goals allowed. This season, we've allowed 4 goals on 3.7 expected. So, okay, it's about close. But you look at like a club like City, they've conceded fewer than their expected allowed. You look at United and Chelsea, way fewer than their expected. Sometimes they go in. And sometimes you get lucky and you get on a run where they don't. I remember the Bournemouth game last season. We came very close to not having that lift, that joy, because they were 1v1 at, what was it, when it was tied, right? After we'd equalized. And they don't score. Sometimes they stay out, sometimes they go in. And that's the weird thing about football. Look at the Declan Rice shot. He hits it well, but it needs a deflection to go past Onana. You just don't know what's going to happen. When Paulinho strikes a ball through a crowded box after a corner, 8 times out of 10, it hits an ankle and it bounces away. That time it finds its way all the way through. So I do think our play is sustainable, and these goals we're conceding are just a bit of the luck of the draw. But if you show me a team that's right there behind City, second best at suppressing shots and suppressing chance quality, then I'm taking that. Ironically, what I think we need to do better is execute in the final third. And I know that does suit my way I look at football. So I get it. I don't want to go too deep on the Ramsdale thing, but I think, we had the one pass out that was bad, straight to United player. He did have the goal they scored, and I think some people might say he could do better there. I'm still really on the fence about that. We probably wouldn't talk about it if it was Turner who was still behind him, but it is Raya who's behind him, and people are kind of wondering, is Raya going to come in? We'll see. Raya's probably not going to start a Premier League game until he at least starts a Champions League game or a cup tie or something like that. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to our equalizer quickly as we do the moments review here, Tim, and we touched on its importance, so we don't need to talk about its importance, but it is really lovely play up the left, a lot of really good incisive passes, and then Martinelli, who, it's weird, I want to praise his game, and yet at the same time, I thought there were so many moments he could have picked a better ball in the positions he had gotten to. Picks an absolutely beautiful ball, and we do have to praise Martinelli as well, because, what was it? There's a later moment where it's for the Saka chance that Saka misses. He nutmegs 2 guys in midfield and swings it out to the right. So I thought he was really sharp in general, but he couldn't ask to get it any better than he does. And let's give Martin Odegaard credit. I thought he looked for his shot too much in this game when the easy extra pass was on. But I mean, that finish is so pure. Tim, it's a lovely move. And I remember tweeting at the time, that is too easy. Just keep going. They're there. It felt so easy in that moment to cut them open because we executed. I just wish we'd do that more,
Yeah, we had serenity in that moment. Like everyone did the right thing, and which was
on
really
one
impressive.
Touch,
yeah, which was really impressive given this happened a lot to us that we keep going a goal down. This was a real pressure cooker situation. Again, like maybe if this had percolated another 5-10 minutes, we wouldn't have done that. But like every touch was great. I thought Martinelli had a great game. Just sometimes, like when you're judging attacking players as well, sometimes just go and watch the highlights. Like the short highlights package that just shows you the goals and the best chances, because he's all over all of them, basically. And it's a lovely cutback as well. He's nice and calm. Same with Eddie as well. Like in that moment, his pass to Martinelli, all of the stuff we've all questioned whether Eddie Nketiah can do. In that moment, lovely. Just that was the right option. Maybe a year ago, I think Eddie has a shot there. He might just size that up and go, oh God, I've got to score because I've got to score to do something. But he takes the right option. The run from Odegaard's great, and it's just one of those where the second it's pulled, like you see it all unfolding. Like your eyes are about half a second ahead of the ball because you know where it should go. You know where it's going. It comes back to Odegaard. You know exactly where he's going to put it. Everyone knows where he's going to put it, and he does. And it was just it was a very, very much needed moment of serenity, and I think that's the kind of serenity we've lacked. And I'm sure over the international break, the coaches will be looking at that and go, like, do that. I know that's very easy to say, but
easy for you to say.
Like, yeah, but like everyone's shoulders are nice and low, and everyone's just like picking the right option, and just do that, because there's been a lot of snatching so far this season.
I think that's really it, right? It unfortunately, it's not a satisfying answer to say we just need to do the right things. Because it's like, yes, if every football team just does the right things, then they will all win all the games. But if Havertz doesn't get fresh air, if Saka can finish from point blank, if this guy makes that one extra pass, or that guy just cuts it back instead of drilling it into legs, it just feels like a lot of that. And this was one of those moments where we got everything right. Clive, I want to get your opinion on Bukayo Saka. I think he hasn't gotten off to the best of starts, and this is ironic given that he's already scored an absolute screamer this season and had a penalty scored. And even in his bad games, like you look at some of the data on him, and he's created 5 chances, and he's dribbled 3 guys, and he's drawn 3 fouls, and he's taken 3 shots. So I'm not killing him, but Saka is the star boy. He's the guy that I think first and foremost we want to be, the best player out there when he's playing. And the missed chance wasn't great. And obviously, if Kai Havertz is going to get killed for missing a clear chance, I think Saka's is a really good one too. It's not a great finish. That can happen. It's all about timing. But in general, it felt like he just wasn't really clicking. And this is on the heels of a Fulham game where he wasn't really clicking, had given away the ball a couple of times, including for their early goal. So right now, maybe struggling a little. And I would just love for him to have the interlull off to get a breather. But of course, no, he's going to have to go play every minute of some pointless international games. Where are you with Saka right now? You think it's just a case of learning some new partnerships on that side, a little bit jaded, or there's no problem, he's fine? Where are you with Saka's performances?
Yeah, he's a bit heavy. He looks a bit heavy legs on occasions, but then it's just when you think, oh, he's not doing it, he just bounce off 3 men and keep the ball and do something. But sometimes you have to look at a player and almost project forward and see, you know what, this is the time to rest him before something happens. And I sent out a tweet during the game, please, Gareth Southgate, give him 2 weeks off. Why didn't you pick Ryan Sterling and didn't have anything in the summer, and he wants to play? Play Foden, he's not playing every game. Play somebody who hasn't played 83 games in a row, that he doesn't miss any England games and plays most of the minutes, etc. You have to project forward, because if you want this kid for the summer tournaments, you have to think about this smartly. Do I need to play him now? Because he's going to start, and there are other players with less minutes in the tank. So that's what I think. I know we're part of the problem because we play him all the time. But yeah, I'm just being selfish here and hope that he gets a bit of chance. I think also, if you're an analyst of an opposing club, what are you going to do? Who are you going to try to stop? The guy that has almost the most goal involvements in our team. So you're going to set up plans. I think the fact that Ben White hasn't been there, and although people will critique Thomas Partey's role, I think it's a plan C to play Thomas Partey as a right back inverted behind Timber and behind Zinchenko. And the plan C allowed us to dominate every single game we played in so far. Right, so it's not the ideal, and Saka may have suffered a little bit from the change in dynamics in that person and in that role, and what it forces Odegaard to do, and maybe he hasn't got his passing connections in the same way, and people are treating him slightly even more stringently than they did last season, and so it's all the same. But there are some strange touches in there, but like you say, Elliot, every time I look on the data around him, he's still like top 3 best player. We just expect the top corner to ripple every time he gets the ball, right? So, but what you can't fail to miss is his mentality. When he does a mistake, the next thing is like he switches on immediately. I got to make up for it. And he does. And so when you see that base level mentality, everything's going to be fine. I just hope he gets a rest. But I don't think no one's going to rest him because he's the best right wing in the world at the moment. So that's that. He's going to play.
Yeah. And the only thing, if I wanted to criticize Arsenal this season, actually more than anything, what I'd say is we don't look fit. We don't look super fit yet. On 70-ish minutes, this team really sags, I think, which, you can laugh at me because we won this game in the 95th and 100th minute of the game. The subs had a big thing to do with that. Like, there was a spell there where, like, Rashford was going past a bit and White got beat a couple times. And thank God Rashford was He broke in one time and took the shot himself when he had two players to his right and he could have slid one in. Like, there were dangerous moments. And this is what United have that, like, a Palace don't have and a Fulham don't have and a Forest don't have. They have Højlund, they have Rashford, especially when you take off Martial, who's done, and Anthony, who's done. They have some dangerous players. Clive?
Yeah, I just want to add, actually, and when I rewatched it this morning, when there was like an unofficial drinks break, when on the first sort of break, Saka was sort of asking for a gel, asking for some sustenance, shall we say. And sometimes it was really a very hot day from London yesterday. And sometimes we're not always aware that someone might be carrying something like a stomach upset or something like that on the day, or just being a bit dehydrated or whatever. I found that interesting, that's all, because he's the only one that asked for that. And so you never know, but I'm not overly worried. I'll just love him to get a rest because the zip isn't there. You'll think about fitness, Elliot. You're not the first person to say that. You're not the first person to say that. And I haven't really spotted it. And I'm not really worried at this moment in time, as we're in that 1 game a week block, and anything will change on the 2 games a week block, well, 3 games from 7 days block, which is coming up. But yeah, it's interesting that you've said that, because someone said that to me as well. I haven't seen it, but I'm going to defer to your expert knowledge.
Well, I have no knowledge, as we know, but like, I think what I would say is, you look at some of the people that we use. Martinelli runs himself into the ground in games. So it's no wonder at 70, 75 minutes, he looks shagged out, because does anyone sprint more in a game than Martinelli? He just goes at one speed all game up the wing, and that's going to tire you out. Partey, when he was playing, we know Partey's never been a 90-minute player. It's just not who he is. Zinchenko, never been a 90-minute player. Gives you so much, but at about 75 minutes, you start to lose him. We have a lot of players like that, I think, that just don't look quite like 90-minute players for me. And then we have others that do. Funny thing is, Declan Rice in preseason, I've never seen someone look so tired after 60 minutes. Now he looks like he could go 120 every game. So, some of them are getting their fitness up. It does raise the question, though, Tim, and this is where we got to be careful, because anytime you question a manager, people can rightly say, you think you know football better than... No, I don't think I know football better than the manager. We're just here to try to understand and explore things we're doing and see if there are things we could be doing better or worse or why, and try to arrive on some understanding. So I'm going to raise it, Tim, in this way. It feels to me like Mikel prefers to wait to sub late. Now, I say that ironically, a game after he made 2 critical changes early, halftime and 55 minutes, and he swung the Fulham game and should have swung it to a win. In this game, the subs came at 77 minutes. And that it felt late. Again, ironic me saying that, given that we won the game late with 2 late goals. But I'm just curious, because I think we have the guys on the bench clearly to influence games. I mean, when you've got Gabriel Jesus, for example, on the bench, and Vieira and Smith Rowe, who unfortunately didn't even get on at all, and some of the other players, Jorginho, were you feeling like the subs needed to come earlier? I mean, obviously, look, it's 2 games in a row. He got them spot on. We just didn't get the 3 points we should have against Fulham. I'm just wondering what you think the mindset is there of why we went all the way to 77 minutes, especially maybe with like a Kai, who people felt was struggling a bit.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think another really interesting thing, I think, was in Arteta's pre-match press conference, where he talked about the 36 and 43 different formations and
yes.
things like that. But the reason I found that so interesting is because kind of what I think he was saying is very true, is that like there's a disconnect between coaches, journalists and fans. That's kind of a journey, right? It like things come out the mouth of the coach to the journalists to the fans, and there is a disconnect between all of those 3 things in the technical aspects of football. So like I think what Arteta was saying there was like, your definition of formation and my definition of formation are very, very different things. Like I'm doing this on a whole different level. And
True.
and so yeah, like formations is one of those things. I think substitutions is one of those things as well, where like as long as I've been watching Arsenal under several different coaches, this has always been a discussion. I always heard people saying like Wenger never made subs. You look at the data, like we got tons of goals from substitutes, but everyone thought he made subs too late. And so there is an element of, because we're anxious as fans, we always just want to see subs. Like it's the first thing. It's like, I know I do it as well, particularly in the emotion of the moment. Like it makes you feel safe.
Yep.
You go, oh my God, bring a sub on. I I felt like he did it at the right time here, in that there was a little spell just before the subs where I felt like, particularly when United bought, like, let's face it, Martial as a striker, that's a very easy day for you as a centre back. That's a traffic cone. And then they brought on someone in Højlund who, like, this is how low I think the expectations have got around Man United. The fact that he, put himself about is like, oh my God, this guy looks amazing. And he might be, don't get me wrong, but the fact that, like,
he was slightly concerning to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Martial, like, you forget he's there, basically. So, I do think there is a part of, first of all, that and I'm not kind of denying your point here. Like 77 minutes, that is quite late. Like Guardiola gets this as well. Like Guardiola very rarely makes triple subs on 65 minutes or anything like that. So I think there are a few things potentially going on. I felt like they were made at the right time. I felt like they were made at a time when the game actually was changing and United did something and we had to react to that. So we did. And I do think there is something about that we're doing where we let the opposition make the first move and then we react to it, because there's a pattern there. The opposition go first, they do something that changes the game, and then you've got the ability. We didn't make a sub to the 77th minute, but it was a triple substitution. So United moved, they blinked, they did something, and we were able to go, okay, they've now got a striker who will actually compete for headers, and he's pulling over onto Gabriel. Let's put Tomiyasu on, because he's a better defender. He's good in the air. He'll better be able to handle him than Zinchenko. And so I do think there's something about letting the opposition go first. I do also think, and particularly around the Saka discussion, like for me, first of all, I'm really not noticing that he's not. I think he looks fine. I think he looks 7 out of 10. And we've talked about before how Saka has cruise mode, and it's early September. And I just remember we were having exactly the same discussion about him this time last year. We were like, Saka's not really doing much, is he? And then bang, it gets to October and it's like, oh yeah, here he is doing loads of stuff again. Like, I do think Saka's just got and I think this is part of the reason he plays so much, is because he has cruise mode. Because he's able to go into 6, 7 out of 10 mode because he's so good. So there might be like a conditioning element to it as well, where it's early in the season and you don't want to look, I don't think, like in tip-top prime condition in early September, because if you are, it probably means you're fucked in January, quite frankly. So I think there are a few things going on, but I think the main thing is letting the opposition roll the dice first and then reacting to it.
Yeah, and by the way, what we should say is, in the Fulham game, he made early changes. 2 of the best players on the pitch, the 2 players he brought on, Eddie and Vieira. In this game, he made later changes. From the 77th minute when he made the change to the end, Tomiyasu, Jesus, and Vieira, probably the 3 best guys on the pitch. And all contributed to, and Jorginho, who comes on late, all contributed to the Jesus goal. So, I think they work. I do want to point something out. In every game, each set of fans feels aggrieved by a certain thing. It is awfully fucking rich for the United fans to be complaining about calls in this game, by the way. I mean, we had the penalty overturned. That will not be done again the rest of the season. Are you guys aware they are actually saying that Saka should have had a red card for his foul? He kind of slips over trying to get it. They're saying he should have a red card. Did anybody see Lindelof kick Eddie Nketiah in the head? Anybody remember that? Breaking down the left wing, and he literally kicks him in the face? It's a high boot. I mean, could it be a red card? Could be. It's not. I don't think I want that to be a red any more than I want Saka's to be red. You just have these moments throughout games. And there were just a lot of little moments throughout this game where I actually thought things could have gone our way, but didn't. And that just feels like the story of the season. But I that comes and goes, that ebbs and flows. Things are going to start to go our way if we keep playing this way, I think. Clive, the subs were really good. But the player that I want to call out just for extra attention, I think, is Jesus, because it's interesting. In the first half, there was this weird dynamic where United were trying to play out from the back. And the only guy who seemed to want the ball, ironically, was Onana. If they had David De Gea in this game, they would have lost like 7-0 because when they tried to play out from the back, like none of their players wanted it. But Onana was able to come out, get on the ball. And if he had to just kick it long to safety, he did. He was comfortable playing with it. I think that made a difference. I think Jesus, the one thing that he has maybe over Eddie, Jesus is an exceptionally intelligent and aggressive presser. He's a great presser. And I think if we're going to press more when he's back in the starting lineup, that'll make a difference. But I thought his short cameo as a sub, not just on the goal, but what he did shifting to the right and getting open and keeping the ball in that tigerish way that he puts the shits up defenders and get Johnny Evans on his ass within 2 seconds. I think we saw a glimpse of the level we can go up still with Jesus. Am I overstating it? Because I do love Jesus, but I thought that this was an eye-catching cameo, obviously the goal being the best part of it.
Yeah, I just felt we needed a bit more high touch from another forward. And Eddie did a lot of off-the-ball work. Again, we saw part of the show, right? He did a lot of off-the-ball work, a lot of shielding down one side. We didn't want Martinez to build up. We wanted Lindelof to build up. So Eddie was part of that. We didn't want to overpress because when we overpressed once, we got done, right? So didn't want to overpress. The goalkeeper's massive ego, fancies himself, and he wants to have all the ball all the time. And so he literally is baiting us by just playing it just past you. So you think you're going to get it, you're not going to get it. But once the effort you've made to get the ball, you're now out of the game, and they've bypassed you. So I think Eddie did a good job to prepare the ground for Jesus, and that's what my starter finisher thing. That's absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus did remind me that when he's on the pitch, everything changes. The ball goes to his feet. And by the way, I watched it again this morning. He did a couple of dribbles and a couple of dodgy headers, and he got caught for the Garnacho goal when he came inside. Was it a foul? Not too sure. But everything changes. We have another player on the pitch, it feels like. And he does like two jobs, another two-jobber. Right? He's out wide, he's inside, he's carrying, he's putting his foot on it. He's just all action. And that means the other team have got to just do something about it. And I think Eddie was a little bit quieter personality-wise, but very industrious in this game. And that's part of the game plan that we had to play, to be very cute off the ball against a team that was keeping the ball in their own box. Right? So Eddie had that role to play. And every game is a different story, right? And so that was the story for this game. He wasn't able to slash and run through against a wide open defence through channels. There's no channels to run into because Manchester United played deep and they played high and just missed out in the middle completely, right? So and so there's nowhere for him to run. So he had to just be a really industrious off the ball game. But Jesus came on and the game changed by then. It became an on the ball game for us. We were pushing, and Jesus as an on the ball forward, multi-positional. I think again, much like my sort of left 8 chat earlier on, we've only seen Jesus for 14 games last year, really. The first 14 games, and then he got injured, and then he came back slowly. We saw him in bits and pieces. If he's really sorted his knee out, we're going to have a new player after the international break, hopefully. And a few hill runs, mate, and he'll be back out there, and he'll be really sharp. And I can't wait to see him at his absolute tip-top sharpness where he was pre-season last year.
Yeah, and let's just be clear on one thing with Eddie. It's his pass that should lead to the Havertz penalty. That should have been a penalty. It was brilliant. And I think does he play it to Martinelli, to Odegaard for the equalizer, right? A really nice bit of interconnected play there. Nketiah was involved in some really, really good moments. I think where I am with Eddie is last season I really wasn't sure about him. And I was really concerned that we could not be great with him playing. We needed Jesus or some alternative. Now I've come around and understand we can be a very, very good team with Eddie. I just think we have a level up we can go with Jesus, but that's a beautiful place to be. They're both, Eddie has proven, I think, to me that he can play at the level we need from a player at Arsenal to achieve the goals we have. So that's a great thing. Look, there's so many little moments in this game that I think are funny, but I just want to reiterate that at 66 minutes, Lisandro Martinez, the butcher, asked to come off because he no longer wanted to play football against Arsenal. There's literally no other reason he has to come off. This man has no injury. He just didn't want to play anymore. That's absolutely hilarious. Well, let's finish on this because we haven't done enough of it. Tim, Declan Rice gets a moment That's why he comes to Arsenal from West Ham, right? To be in the biggest games on the biggest stage, watched by the whole world, and win them. A lot of players make that step up and it's too big for them. It swallows them up. But some players just have something about them where they can make that step up and they just back themselves. He's been good basically since we kicked off the season. I think he's gotten better and better with each game, frankly, which is a little scary. Now he steps into the six. He doesn't have the comfort and the safety of Thomas Partey sort of next to him to do Thomas Partey stuff. And he's playing Manchester United and he's brilliant. And he still has something left in the tank to collect, swivel, and score in the 95th minute. I'm so happy for him. And it's funny. I said at the time, there's a little part of me that thought Caicedo going for more than he did helps Rice. Because if you're 105 million and the next closest signing of the summer is like 60 million, everyone's gonna be like, they overpaid for him. You're too expensive. Oh, 105 million pounds. All that's gonna follow you around. But the market went so nuts, and other midfielders, Caicedo went for more, and Lavia went for whatever the hell he went for, and like prices went through the roof. I almost think it gave Rice a chance to be like, I'm not out there in the stratosphere. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but ultimately, I think the way he's settled and the way he gets this moment, the sky's the limit for this player. And when you spend 105 million, let's be clear, if you get it wrong, that can become a big problem very quickly. As we saw with Pepe, to be fair, it can hamper you. But getting it right, the way it seems we've gotten it right with Rice, we're going to enjoy this ride for a long, long time. So how impressed are you with him, his character, his performance, what he's giving this team right now? I can't even believe it. I'll be honest with you. I can't even believe how good he's been so far, and it's just the beginning.
Yeah, I honestly, I never doubted it for a second. I really didn't. We're quite familiar with this player, and I've seen this player in the stadium before, and you could see the way he played for West Ham. It was all through here. Like, he was that team. Don't get me wrong, West Ham, I think they've actually done all right with the money. They haven't tried to replace him like for like. They bought two midfielders in Alvarez and Ward-Prowse, and they've recognised we're not getting another Declan Rice, so let's spread that money. And, they've kind of done all right out of that, I think. But it's just one of those players, a bit like when we signed Sol Campbell, it was just like, this is fine. There's just no way this isn't going to be brilliant, because that's just who the player is, and he knows this league and everything. And so, not massively surprised. There's a really good episode of the Tifo Football Podcast come out today, focusing on exactly what you referenced there, the fact that these deep lying midfielders are going for lots of money now.
I saw that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo, Rice, all over 100 million, Lavia, and they were talking about it. It was really interesting, and talking about how important that player is, and particularly if you're a team that doesn't want to play with a double pivot anymore, you want one guy who can hold it together, so you can get another attacker on the pitch, so we can get Havertz on the pitch. That's the guy. It's like the Van Dijk signing for Liverpool. This is the guy that means we can defend on the halfway line now. It's all very much like that. And what I love as well, none of that surprised me. I think he's one of those players. Honestly, I think you could play him up front. I bet it'd be fine. He's just a really, really good footballer, and he shows that in the goal. But I think the thing I really, really love is if you just go back and look at the footage of him at full time, just the smile on his face when the whole stadium singing his name and everything, and he just had that wonderful look on his face that was like, this is what I came for. This is what I came here for. This is, with all due respect, West Ham. I mean, West Ham probably do and have beaten Man United a few times at home, but you know what I mean? This is the kind of game I'm going to get regularly here, and it might not be me making the difference. Someone else, he's not come here really to score goals or anything, but this is the kind of feeling I'm going to have here, and I think just the really kind of genuine look of awe and wonder on his face, as he's walking around at the final whistle, that kind of adrenaline, which again at West Ham, look, he got it with his last ever game for West Ham, which is great for him, but probably not something you get that often at West Ham. But just a wonderful moment, and he really deserved it as well, because whatever about Arsenal doing different things, changing different systems, playing different players, to players like that, it just doesn't matter. They're just too good.
Yeah, I remember years and years ago, I was talking to Tim Clark, who I used to do the ArsenalVision podcast with, and a friend of mine. We were talking about like who's a player currently that you'd take 11 of if you had to field 11 of one player. And I said Yaya Toure. One of those players that you're like, I could play 4 Toures at the back, 3 Toures in midfield, and 3 Toures up front and be okay. Declan Rice is one of those guys. 4 Declan Rices at the back, 3 Declan Rices in midfield, and 3 Declan Rices up front. That team would do okay. I don't know about in goal, but it is what it is. We've played with worse goalkeepers, that's for sure. Just a special player. Clive, I want to finish though on what it means. Unfortunately, the news cycle is short, memories are short, patience is short. We'd outplayed 3 teams we should beat, should have been on 12 points. We weren't. We were on 7. And that alone, plus the window closing in a way that people felt wasn't sufficient, was enough for there to be some, I think, palpable panic. The party injury didn't help. Losing to what we regard as a bad United at home, even failing to win, would have sent us into a complicated 2 weeks where I think suddenly the pressure of this title chase, are we already out of it? Is City already, are we already in the rearview mirror? Is this a top 4 chase? All of the sort of hysterical reactions would have been in play. Maybe rightfully so. I can't say because we don't live in that world, thank God. But how important is it, do you think, that instead of that, and this is obvious, right? It's important, but we now get a joyous moment, a euphoric moment, lifting us to 2 weeks, lightening the mood. And the inflection point here feels very important to me because I think we had gotten too micro-focused on every result, and this must be a title challenge. And maybe this joy that lifts everybody just brings a little lightness back. I know we covered it at the beginning, but where do we go from here? What do you think this does for us in terms of trying to propel a season that weirdly felt a little stale so far? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think with expectation, how we've all come into the season with our various thought process about what the season should give us, right? And we've been very expectant as a fan group, and that's manifested itself in different ways regarding player criticism, etc. And I think Arteta decided this week he was going to throw a blanket over the club and over players, and try to really protect the team by talking about the different formations. That was a way of saying you're not really sure on what you're trying to critique me on, and I'm going to tell you that there are different structures and different shapes. I know what he meant by that. Every time you take a throw in your own half, you have a different shape. Every time you take a throw in the opposition half, you have a different shape. When they have a throw in, when there are different shapes or different roles, when you squeeze in, when you spread out, when you expand, when you contract, all within the same game. And these players have got to make those decisions. Some of those is scripted, some of this is instinctive. And I felt he was just saying to everybody, hold on a minute, you think you know everything, but you just don't. And I'm always of that opinion anyway. We're trying to learn from a distance. We're trying to analyze from a distance, but we may not be aware of every single thing, and there are all different circumstances that we'll arrive at certain points. I'm very keen to look at this season slightly differently. And the next phase of games, Elliot, the next phase is when we are literally going to be playing 3 times a week. And we haven't done that for a while with 3 big games in a week. And so all those players have not had a minute's game yet, or we're not sure about, or they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing. And we all know what works in this team. But the real future of this team is what we're unsure of what works. And the players that are standing on the outside watching us jumping and cheering and watching those 11, 12 players do the business, and they're not quite in it at the moment, and they want their moment. And that's coming soon because we just can't sustain the same group, every 3.5 days, right? So the next phase, the next group of games, we're going to have a completely different view about this squad because we're going to see the whole squad, including the second goalkeeper. We're going to see everything. And so our thought process is, rather than looking for problems, we're going to have a new set of analysis, new set of relationships, and new ways of playing all coming at us in the next few weeks because it just has to. It's just the nature of where we're going competition-wise. So I can't wait for it, mate, because we have become a little bit first 11 obsessed and getting the points because we're worried about people around us. Actually, maybe we need to just worry about ourselves and where we're going and just accumulate in the first phase of the season, the second phase of the season, work out what works and settle on your team towards a home run. And that's what the other big team does, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, well said. And Maybe in a weird way, playing twice a week helps because it takes off that constant week-long focus, microanalyzing the league performances, and gives the players a place to go play, as weird as it sounds, where it's less pressurized. I mean, it's weird to call the Champions League less pressurized, but this is what Manchester City do to you. They demand you keep up such a relentless pace just to be considered even in the fight, that every kick of the ball feels existential. And I honestly think we've been playing that way to this point, where every single thing we do in the final third looks like we're trying to win the Champions League final with that next kick. So maybe just a little lightness, a little chance to click a bit in Europe will help. We'll have to see. We got 2 weeks to celebrate this, 2 weeks to do rewatches. Clive, we're doing both halves, I heard you say. So,
Can't wait.
I have been invited to do both halves.
Can't wait, mate. This needs to be studied.
So we'll be doing both half rewatches. If you want to join us over on the Patreon side, we'll obviously do our Premier League Power Rankings episode over on Patreon, because we're at the first international break, and it is a chance to, I think, crap on Chelsea a bit and crap on United a bit. And if you can't get up for that, I don't know where you're at, but we're going to do it. And we'll really take stock of where we're at. But this is why we support. This is why we care, so that we can get rewarded with a day like this. And you know that pulsing feeling, you guys, where the game ends and you're like, I want to watch every interview. I want to read every meme. I want to read every article. I want to listen to every podcast. I want to rewatch the game. Then I want to watch it again. Then I want to watch more memes. Like, that's where I was. I could not go to bed. And there's so much to laugh at United about and celebrate for us. And now we get 2 weeks to do it. And it just, I was dreading this interlude, but in a way now I'm happy because we get to take a deep breath. We're on good footing. We have a fun thing to celebrate for 2 weeks, and we can come back and really get down to business. So we'll leave it there. Hit the 90-minute mark for you on a big game, which is exactly what I think we all need. Tim's on Twitter @Stillmanator. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks very much, Clive.
Thank you very much.
I think we're in the weird position, guys. I didn't think we'd be here this quick. I think we're in the weird position of rooting for Ten Hag to stay in the job now. I think we're in that position. And by the way, this is why football's crazy and why we needed to win that game. Erik Ten Hag was, eras come to an end. We don't play friendlies. A big talker. Won them a trophy, League Cup, but won them a trophy. And here we are 4 games into the season. And I don't think he's going to stay in the job. That's how quickly it can change in football. And, better them than us is all I can say. Okay, we'll leave it there. We love you so much. We got a lot more coming all week. We hope you'll join us for it. But either way, enjoy the time. If you're in the United States, I hope you're enjoying a Labor Day. And to all those who labor and have the day off, thank you for the work you do. And I hope you have a restful and joyous day. So we love you. Who do we play next, guys? Everton. Oh, God. Okay. We love you. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Everton 0.